think it's been very widely publicized on purchase television advertising, and the principal issue has been abortion. The Democrats have decided that abortion is their strong suit. They're throwing a lot of television commercials against the Republican candidates, claiming that they want to ban abortion, which is factually not true. But nonetheless, you put it on radio and TV. The Republicans are actually chose to meet that argument. And instead of avoiding the abortion issue, they're actually addressing it and talking about the governor's proposal to ban abortions after 15 weeks with reasonable exceptions. But that is what has been argued out. Now, I would say that the people of Virginia are very concerned about high inflation. The cost of the grocery store, the cost of gasoline are very significant, and I think has led to some discontent in Virginia. But that has not been the primary debate within these elections.
Well, and of course, we talk about these elections because they will have significance for the state. But to what Jack was discussing earlier, this potentially could be of national significance if indeed it puts some momentum behind Governor Glenn Youngkin if he were to ever pursue higher office, especially as you yourself went from being governor of Virginia to multiple times entering the presidential race. Do you see a path for Glenn Youngkin to do the same?
Well, certainly, while I was not nominated during these Trump years, I'm very proud that I entered, and I have no regrets for entering. It's a wonderful thing to run nationally and get to know everybody across the entire country when you're a candidate. Glenn Youngkin has a lot of advantages. The biggest advantage, of course, is he's a prominent governor of the state of Virginia, and he's quite wealthy, and he has a lot of financial backing. And he has a message, and his message that got him elected, and his message remains parental rights, particularly in education. I think people are very concerned about the Democrats' efforts to remake education, to remake the cultural issues here in the United States. Parents just want their kids to be educated, and they basically had a sort of a rebellion in Virginia against the far left approach to education, and that's why Glenn Youngkin got elected. So all of these things are very current. I don't know whether or not he's in a position to go in 24 or not. He'll have to make that decision. But he's an attractive, prominent man and could still run in 28.
Governor, I know I've said I'm a little skeptical that 2023 tells us something about what happens in 2024, but I am curious if you see this as a bellwether for congressional races, or should members of Congress be looking at the map that comes out of these election results? Do we have anything to learn from the results that come out looking forward to 2024?
Jack, I think you learn something every year about politics in Virginia. We're an unusual state, and we have an election every year. There's historical grounds and reasons for that, but we elect somebody either at the federal level or the state level every year, either the governor or the presidency or just the legislature like we have this year. And yes, I think you learn a lot. Naturally, politics and issues shift in the United States of America from year to year. I myself have been devoting my attention to foreign policy as the former ambassador, and particularly the Ukraine issue. In fact, I sent a letter yesterday to the members of the Republican members of the House of Representatives here in Virginia, insisting that they be sure that they vote for the funding of Ukraine. So I'm doing that, and that issue may shift into the federal elections next year. In fact, I think it would. The foreign policy is certainly emerging between the Ukraine issue, which I think is the hinge of the future, and the Israeli issue, which of course we're all very engaged in. So foreign policy is emerging, but it won't be the only thing next year, either in the House races or in the presidential races.
Well, to that point, Governor, when you were talking about really what you think is on Virginians' minds as they head to the polls today, you mentioned two things, really, inflation and abortion, both of which seem like internal facing issues to me, more domestic affairs than international. Do you really think that's going to change in a material way in the span of a year, considering there may be a little bit more fatigue setting in terms of some of those conflicts you just mentioned?
This is the most disrupted time I have ever seen in my life in American politics. I've never seen anything quite like this. So you can't predict what's going to happen, but I'll do my best I can. I think that the issue of abortion is going to continue to be a debate because I think the Democrats want it to be a debate, and they want that to be the principal issue. I think inflation remains a problem. There's no doubt that the people of the United States and the people of Virginia are blaming President Biden, correctly in my view, for this inflation that they're seeing at the grocery store and the gas pump. And I think the pocketbook issues are always an issue. But I insist to you that the foreign policy issues, the issues of war and peace are emerging very strongly. It's we always say, that foreign policy and national security is never an issue in elections until it is, and I think maybe it is growing that way right now.
Governor, I've got to follow up on your point on Ukraine aid in particular. As I speak to members of Congress, I see a big difference between Republicans in the House and Senate on how they want to move forward, or if they want to move forward with Ukraine aid. There's a really interesting intra-party divide there, especially given your foreign policy expertise and your time as RNC chairman. I have to just ask you your view on a simple question of what is the Republican position on Ukraine aid right now?
The Republican Party is divided, but all the noise and attention is being given to the anti-Ukraine group. But I believe they are a vocal minority. The majority of the Republican Party remains committed to Reagan type of foreign policy and national security. The Democrats traditionally have not been that way, but they are that way now because they're so supportive of President Biden. But my view is that President Biden needs to do a great deal more. He's done too little, too late. And I think that there's an aggressive need to fund the Ukrainian war. As a matter of fact, damage has already been done by this debate in the United States because it makes our allies and our allies less certain and our adversaries more enthusiastic because of this division. But I believe that at the end of the day, the Republican Party will, in a strong majority,